About to go live.
Welcome, everyone, to Podcast Heat Wrestling. I'm Emily May, the moderator tonight. And tonight, we are welcoming two guests, WWE Hall of Famer and World's Strongest Man, Mark Henry, as well as Harvard lawyer and a former WWE wrestler, David Otunga. Welcome, gentlemen, to tonight's discussion.
Well,
And
thank you, Emily.
yes. So before we all begin, I really wanted to just kind of preface this that, tonight we are going to be discussing a very sensitive topic. It is the Raja Jackson and Stuart Psycho Stu Smith situation. And it happened a few weeks ago. And the goal is to have a sensitive, productive conversation. And these are going to be opinions from two industry experts as well as legal expert. And they're going to be different perspectives. And I know we all know this is a very sensitive situation. This is a legal situation, and the investigation is still going on. Especially with everything going on in the world right now, I just want to propose that we are going to move forward with grace and understanding in our conversations and the chat tonight. So we will be opening it up to the chat in a little bit, and we want to make sure that we're having that productive conversation moving forward as we talk about this incident in the wrestling industry. So, gentlemen, does that sound good?
It sounds great. I mean, respectfully, thank you, Emily, for coming on and being a moderator for this. I'd like to thank David Otunga, not only as somebody that I look at as being a awesome wrestler, but also a guy that is kind of very amazing in the sense that this is a Harvard graduate, a guy that's licensed at the bar, passed the bar with flying colors, and is a practicing lawyer. So like none of that is pro wrestling.
Right.
That is the real deal. Emily, we've known each other for a long, long time. We have a lot of mutual friends, and one of the few things that I've never been able to say to you is I love the fact that how available you are in the pro wrestling space. Like you could be found like anywhere and everywhere. Like, man, there is no hiding you.
No. Sorry, Mark.
That's awesome. I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for reaching out. And I know this is going to be, again, Mark, I would like to start with you because you've had a lot of there's been lots of feedback. Again, we are in that world of social media where we see clips of obviously the situation that happened, and there was already lots of discussion about fault, what exactly happened, and you've discussed the vitriol that you've gotten regarding your stance on this situation. And has anything changed in your mind, after a few weeks removed from everything?
Well, I mean, as far as the change in my belief that it was a wreck from the beginning to the end, no, it was a wreck from the beginning to the end. The number one thing in pro wrestling is everybody has to be on the same page, or you could die. And at the beginning, nobody was on the same page. At the first confrontation, nobody was on the same page. They're fixing it, so-called fixing it. They never really got on the same page. And then once the accident or incident happened, then it became the worst thing that you could think of, which, Raja Jackson is not without fault. I said from the beginning that this is something that I don't condone in pro wrestling. And we're going to get into it in detail, but definitely it was a bad thing from beginning to end. And this is opinion. This is based off my opinions. It's based off everybody else's opinion that talked about it. To make it a issue about race is ridiculous, and it's something that those people that love to hide behind a computer. Those are the ones that are going to do that. So, it's my opinion has changed in the sense that I know more, but it hasn't changed in the sense that it should have been more well polished out.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for sharing that. I mean, it was a very, like I said, that is that world of social media where we're getting bits and pieces of information and we're seeing clips and we're not necessarily, we're not there in person, right? We're just
Right.
getting certain perspectives. So again, like you said, Mark, these are all opinions. David, I know you're going to give your legal advice. You've been sharing a lot on your platforms, just from a legal perspective. As a Harvard lawyer, you definitely have a very unique perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I've been waiting. This is my moment where my two worlds combine: professional wrestling and the law. I mean, this is that one time being a Harvard educated lawyer actually plays in my benefit because those things are so different. But first of all, I just want to say, like, I want to give my personal opinion now because then I'm going to try to take that out and remain objective. That's how I always do when I look at cases. And I want to go to what you said, Emily, where in this day of social media, we just start getting little bits and pieces of things. Like the first clip I saw was just the end, with the slam and the punches. And I mean, that was awful. That was difficult to watch, especially being a professional wrestler, being a worker. Mark knows this. I mean, what we do is we're giving our body to the other person. We're trusting them. And if you're not both on the same page, like Mark said, there could be disastrous consequences. So I'm trying to figure out, as I'm seeing this, how did we get here? What happened? This guy came in and just completely went into business for himself and started really punching this guy who was not only knocked out, but before that was helping him, even posted for the slam. So personally, I mean, I don't condone this at all. I'm totally against what Rajah Jackson did. And I think that he's criminally responsible. Like, he should be arrested. He should get some jail time for this. He is at fault. Now, when I saw this and I started hearing all these different opinions, there was a lot of stuff coming out about race. And I was kind of taken aback because I didn't see how that played into this. But maybe that's because I'm a professional wrestler. So, I was just trying to remain neutral and see what was going on here. But from a legal standpoint, I wanted to take this and just look at it objectively, not take a side, but just see what the facts are. Like, if I was a lawyer hired for this, how would I handle this? And the great thing about this case, and in this day of social media, the whole thing is streamed on Kick. The whole entire thing. Like, we've never had a case like this. All you have to do is just watch the stream. Like, when this goes to court, I'm telling you, they are going to play that entire thing for the jury. And so that's what I did, is I went and I sat and I watched the entire stream. And then anytime there was something that stuck out to me as a lawyer, I would comment on that. And there was a lot. And like Mark said, this was a disaster from the beginning, a disaster all the way around, from the point where you could tell, like, there's just miscommunication, because if you're not a professional wrestler or in the professional wrestling world, you don't understand the culture. You don't understand, certain words that you just wouldn't. Even if you're in MMA, it's very, very different from professional wrestling. And from the moment that Rajah was led backstage with a camera, because don't forget, this kid is a streamer too. And so he was streaming live back there. And you can see, the wrestlers backstage are kind of confused. They don't really know what's going on. But here's a kid backstage streaming. And I know from my experience, and Mark can speak to this too, but in the locker room, if somebody comes in with a camera, there's a reason, because outsiders aren't just allowed in our locker rooms. First of all, they got to be with somebody. And usually you can see who the wrestler is, or, if they're with, talent relations or whatever, somebody's leading them. And if there's a camera, that is authorized. Like, there's definitely no unauthorized cameras. So anytime I would see somebody backstage with a camera, obviously they're filming something. So either I would stay out of it or do what I was doing, or, if they needed me for it, I would be involved in it. Man, I just keep going. But Mark, what's your experience with that? Like, if you saw somebody backstage with a camera, what would you think?
Well, it's happened many times. It happened at WWE. It happened at AEW. It's happened for my company, All Caribbean. Like people come in and they start videoing, hey, I'm sorry, who are you with? Like, why are you back here? Like, oh, I'm just a fan. Well, you got to be a fan out there, and let me have your phone because I'm going to erase everything out of it. That happens multiple times in my career. And from the beginning, I'm gonna just go through what I saw in the beginning of the deal that made me make a comment. Is the fact that um, when you walk up to an arena and you see people tailgating, you see people enjoying themselves, but you don't see the wrestlers tailgating. You don't see the wrestlers drinking and smoking and having a good time outside. That's the initial thing you see. A performer drinking alcohol. I unfortunately had to wrestle and be involved several times with people that were under the influence. It's never fun. And that's the last thing that I wanted to see as a fan of pro wrestling. Nevertheless, once that happened, the guy was not what we call smartened up. He was not under the understanding that everybody works together and you need to go get your Twitch or your streaming platform cleared with the office that ran that promotion. Didn't happen. Everything was allowed to be shot, which I think it was great that it was shot now because you get to see what really happened. And what really happened, Roger Jackson had no clearance, which he could possibly face litigation from that side of it. But the number one thing is the fact that he took advantage and is very lucky that Stu didn't die, because if he had, it would have been manslaughter. It could have been murder. And I'm very happy that he recovered, because he didn't deserve what came to him. And I said that from the beginning, but it was such a short clip on TMZ that all people heard was, oh, Mark Henry said he got what he deserved. He played a serious part in it. He didn't know the situation. So he lashed out, acted out aggressively to somebody that can really, really fight. He didn't know. And when I said that sometimes you can bite off more than you can chew, I bit off more than I could chew a couple of times. Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin. I challenged those guys, and both of those guys beat me. But I asked for it. Stu didn't ask for it. Stu didn't want to test himself against this guy's abilities. So he didn't deserve that. So now you get into the whole deal. You have people in his ear telling him, hey, man, you need to go get your get back. You got to get your receipt. And in wrestling, a receipt is when somebody does you bad or somebody beats on you, you go give it back to them tenfold. Roger was not educated to understand that in a working way. That's why I was just so puzzled at how all of this even happened in the first place. Mm-hmm. And it's just a sad, sad deal. I'm so glad that Stu is okay. Hopefully that the monies raised for him will go to his medical care and help him to rehabilitate and be the guy that he was before. Yeah. But, we'll get into it later on, David. And I told you when we looked at the film that this guy should never be around wrestling again.
Yeah.
He should never be. He had contentment for pro wrestling. He even said in the video, man, I don't even really get down with wrestlers like that anyway. Yeah. He's like, they ain't real. And he wanted to make an example, and he did. He succeeded, but it's going to hurt him a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking to what you're saying, there's a point in the video when I went back through it, he actually says, I've always wanted to F up a pro wrestler. He didn't say
Right.
F. I've always wanted to F up a pro wrestler. And to me, watching that, yo, that's a wild thing to say. Like, what kind of a dream is that? So he already wasn't in the mind state. And to go back to something else you said, this whole situation kind of happened because of just of terms, of receipt. They assumed Raja knew what a receipt was. He clearly did not, because you can see his friend who was there, who apparently brought him, was AJ Mana. That's who he was visiting. There's a part where AJ says to him, hey, you remember what a receipt is, right? And Raja just says, yeah. Now, right there, we don't know if he, because apparently there was a prior conversation they were referring to. Did they have a conversation? Did somebody have a conversation with Raja about what a receipt is? Because clearly he didn't understand it. And this could be confusing for somebody like Raja. So even if he does know what a receipt is, obviously you're getting a get back. However, the get back you're getting is still working. You may lay a shot in stiffer, a little bit more snug, but it's still safe. This does not give you, free reign just to go beat somebody down and nearly kill them. It does not that. It does not do that. That is not what a receipt is. So Raja, you can tell like he's kind of, struggling with this. He's like, yo, they told me I can hit him for real. Well, not exactly. They didn't. They said you could get something back and you lay it in, because AJ keeps telling him, tag that MFer. But tag him, AJ, in AJ's mind, I'm assuming he means safe. Just whatever your one shot is, lay it in, make that count. Nowhere did I hear somebody say, nearly kill him, give him 20 something punches, do whatever you're going to do. And another thing that was just a disaster. Hey, if I'm working with somebody, if I was Psycho Stu, if I'm working with somebody and I know we're going to have a spot and I know this guy is not a worker, you better believe no matter what, at some point, I'm going to talk to this individual to make sure we're on the same page. At least that. But in reality, I'm probably going to walk through it or rehearse it with them, so they're on the same page and I'm on the same page. But that didn't happen. So it was like they kept trusting somebody else to tell him. I don't know if Psycho Stu thought that the promoters were going to tell him what his spot was, but that didn't happen. It got lost in translation and fell through the cracks. And this is what can happen. I mean, this is a disastrous consequence, just disastrous.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, both of you, for your insights on this. I mean, Mark, you mentioned that in previous interviews, you also talked about being smartened up yourself about the wrestling industry before you really got into it. And I would love both of your perspectives on how do you handle a situation as a organization, a promotion, a coach? How do you smarten up these individuals that are going into this industry that don't understand it, that didn't really, they didn't necessarily grow up with it. Again, an MMA fighter moving into the wrestling industry. How do you smarten up kind of these crossover athletes potentially that could, they're making, obviously this was a really huge incident and a huge mistake. So how do you smarten up these talents that are coming in?
Emily, first off, you want to bring people into pro wrestling that love it, that respect it, and that appreciate an opportunity. I don't think none of those were looked at by Roger Jackson as a great entry point to pro wrestling. Just wasn't. He didn't respect the business. He didn't respect the talent. And I don't think that he loves it. I think fame and making money supersede the fact that he should really try to integrate himself into the business as I love it. I'm a fan of it. That didn't happen. So with that said, everybody involved that brought him in have a claim to this. Like, this is not just Roger's fault. It's everybody's fault. And Stu just happened to be the guy that ended up getting in his face. Stu is a happenstance in this whole deal. And I hate that for him. he didn't deserve none of what he got because he gave his body, like David said. And rehearsals are, I feel like, one of the more important things in entertainment, whether it's a movie, voice work, pro wrestling, stage performances. You have to go over it and over it and over. And it's like that old adage, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. You have to do it over and over. You have to know it backwards and forwards. Nobody educated this kid. So that was the crux of the problem, is misunderstanding and miseducation. On Busted Open, we have a show, our Pro Wrestling 24/7, we have a show called The Masters Class. And we break down and talk about the nuances, the small, minute nuances, as well as blaring, obvious ones. I guarantee you that Roger's never watched the show. He's never sat down with someone and said, hey, teach me the history of pro wrestling. I guarantee you it didn't happen. So with that, the end result is what you get when you don't have some education. And again, like I said to all the people on social media that made it about race, I'm not siding with him because of his color. I'm not siding with the company because they did everything right. And I'm not siding with Stu because he was a victim. Everybody involved were at a deficit. And it's just a horrible situation. And I hope that, it can be all worked out, but it doesn't look like it to me.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said too, Mark, is the way it appeared to me, it didn't seem like Raja was trying to be a wrestler. Like, it seemed like, just from hearing him talk at the beginning of that stream, he literally just showed up because he needed content, and his friend AJ was wrestling. So he just was like, hey, let me go check this out. I'll say some slick stuff to my chat, whatever. So just, if I put myself in his shoes for a second, he's just streaming. He goes backstage. He's being introduced to everybody. This guy comes up to him, and you can see from the video, Stu was thinking. He was trying to go somewhere with this. I don't know where he was trying to go, but he decided, I'm going to hit him with this beer can, and then what? This goes into he was drinking. So this wasn't a well thought out plan on his part, but he assumed, I don't know, they were going to do something. But if you're Raja, hey, look, you are just there as a spectator. You're seeing your buddy backstage. It's probably the first time he's ever been backstage at a wrestling event. And some guy comes up and just clocks him. But now think about this. He's on stream. This guy clocks him with a working shot with this beer can. So it doesn't hurt him. So that's got to throw somebody off. You're expecting this is going to hurt. But all of a sudden, it surprises you too. And it doesn't hurt. But it embarrassed him. You know what I mean? Like, this made him look bad in front of his chat. So now Raja's like, well, what do I do? Do I fight him back right now? And if he had done that, all of this would have been avoided. And I'm going to tell you something else. So here's the legal side of this. If Raja had retaliated immediately, he could have done that lawfully, and it would have been self-defense. He could have jumped on Stu. He could have done whatever, and it would have been self-defense. The reason what he did in the ring about an hour later wasn't self-defense is because he didn't imminently believe that he was in danger. There was a cooling off period. In fact, they shook hands in between this, and he said, okay, he understands. Clearly he didn't, as we saw what happened in the ring.
David, and in that shaking of the hands, Stu also said, hey man, I ain't know. Like, that is an admission of, bro, I don't know what's going on. I don't even know how we got here. I apologize, and you accept my apology. Like, they went through it all.
Yeah.
It should have never happened.
And to go with what you're saying, exactly, at that point, they shake hands. It's clear. Stu didn't know. Raja didn't know. But what is said to make Raja happy, they say, hey, we'll let you get a run in. We'll turn this into something.
That's where the problem is, David.
Absolutely.
Why didn't it end right there at the apology? Hey man, I don't know what happened. I thought this was a part of the show. Something. And then everybody that's involved say, guys, hey man, y'all got to turn the camera off. You know, like if you want to stay and watch the show, great. But otherwise, we might have to ask you to leave. Yeah. Like that's where it should have been. But
and in fact, you know what, Mark? There was a part where that happened that I caught on his stream. There, a guy, I don't know who he was, but he's off camera that works for the promotion, was telling him, hey, can you shut the camera off? Because and he says, we're trying to work something out. And Raja tells him, nah, I'm streaming. That camera is with me. So they kind of let it go. And then that's where this conversation goes from, where they just say, all right, well, we'll let you get a get back. We'll turn it into something. However, that you can tell that's off the cuff. They're telling Raja anything just to appease him. And here's something I never thought about before, though. They know they're being recorded. So like that puts pressure on whoever's back to the promoter. They want to seem cool, like they're trying to help him out. And then, yeah, we can turn this into an angle. But the problem is it was off the cuff. It was real loosey-goosey. You could do this with somebody who is a trained worker, but you can't do this with somebody who has no idea about the business. They don't know what selling is. They don't know who's a worker. They don't even know what's going on. They were back there and completely caught off guard. Now you're telling him, hey, we'll let you run in. Even telling Raja, we'll let you have a run in. What does that mean to him? He doesn't know what a run in is. He doesn't know that means he gets to run in and it's still scripted. It's called a spot. We're going to work this out. He has no idea, because then they're also telling him, and you get to lay it in. You get to get your receipt. You get to really tag him. So in his mind, wait, am I going in and this is like staged, but you're telling me I can really hit him? Now, let me just stop right there though. He's confused. I'm not excusing what he did at the end there, because later on in the stream, there's a good bit where he self-incriminates. I mean, he just keeps talking and telling his chat what he's going to do. He understands that he's going to go in there and he's not supposed to really hit Psycho Stu, but he says, I'm going to go off script. And to me, I thought that was the most damning piece of evidence. I labeled that my smoking gun. I hadn't seen that, and that clip wasn't floating around. I had to watch the entire stream, and I see why that clip wasn't floating around. Because, I mean, he explicitly says he knows what he's supposed to do, but he's going to go in and do it for real. He's going to surprise him. He even says, I ain't going to F him up too bad. Like this. So that part, he knew what he was doing. That was premeditated. He went in there to attack for real.
Yeah. So David, I wanted to get your insight, because we have a few questions in our super chat. But one question that I know that is on all of our minds, and it was mentioned in the chat: why has there not been any legal charges, in your opinion, brought to the surface against Raja at this point in time?
Is that my question? Did I type that into the chat? Because I have the exact same question. What is taking so long? I mean, everybody saw this. He should be arrested. He should be under the jail right now. But I'm going to tell you what I think is hanging up the police is that this was professional wrestling. So they don't know what was a work, what was a shoot, what was real, what was planned. Because don't forget, like, even if you watch that stream, depending on whose side you want to take, they did give Raja permission to get in there and get a receipt. There's all these people. There's people telling him, tag him, lay it in. So you could use that and build an argument. Raja went in and did what he was supposed to do. However, if you're in professional wrestling or not, if you are familiar with professional wrestling and you know how it works, you can tell this isn't how it was supposed to go. Even if you've never seen professional wrestling, you know that doesn't look right. And that's where Raja has no excuse, because he's an MMA fighter, even if he wasn't. If you know the person you're working with, not even an opponent, the person you're supposed to be working with is unconscious, you don't keep punching them. They're defenseless. Why would you just tee off and throw haymakers as hard as you can? 20-some punches to an unconscious man. I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for that. There's no way I can wrap my head around that.
No excuse. And he was so, what's going to be even as damning as the footage of him hitting him in the streaming is after effects. His father is trying to correct him and tell him to, like, man, this is out of control. Why would you do this? He was indignant with his father. He would not it was like he didn't want to listen to what his father was telling him. And we all have kids. Well, I know David and I have kids, and they're not always going to listen. But when you're trying to like educate somebody on something that's serious, that's especially life threatening. I used to tell my kids all the time, hey, if I tell you to stop, just stop. Don't ask me a question. We'll talk about it afterwards. That did not happen. He was so defiant in the fact that I did what I did, and that's what it is. Well, it's not going to work out well, because the way that if this goes to court, which I know it is, he's not going to win. It's not going to look good for him. Like I looked through it with David, as well as another buddy of mine that's a lawyer. And he said, Mark, man, he better be glad that I'm not defending, or that I'm not trying to, really give him the business, because this is a open and shut case.
Well, David, and one more legal question from there was a question in the chat. What is like the worst case, best case scenario in a situation like this once the investigation is fully complete?
Well, it depends on from whose perspective we're talking about. Best case scenario for Raja is different from Psycho Stu, and worst case scenario. Also, I actually want to finish the question before. Why do I think the police are taking so long?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, this could be a work. Like, nobody's heard from Psycho Stu, and so once he comes out and speaks, if he does, I mean, hypothetically, imagine if he said, "Oh, this was all at work, and Raja isn't his fault." That would be wild. I don't think he's going to say that, but what if he said he knew, some part of this was coming, or whatever it is? Like, you want to hear from that. I think just that piece, that's why the police are really taking their time, because again, even the police don't know what's a work, what's a shoot, and you have two people saying the opposite, two sides. So I mean, I think that's a major part. But in terms of Raja, worst case scenario, he's arrested, and he's probably going to be charged with battery, assault to commit serious bodily harm. There's even a charge that he could be hit with called mayhem in California, and that's a felony that carries up to 8 years in prison. So that would probably be the stiffest consequence he could get, would be 8 years, and they might even stack these charges on top of each other. One thing I want to bring up here, because I've been asked this so many times, is do I think that he'll be charged with attempted murder? How is this not attempted murder? And I'll tell you, attempted murder is a lot harder to prove than people think. Like, could he be charged with attempted murder? Technically, yes, he could be charged with it, but I think it would be difficult to get a conviction. Prosecutors would be rolling the dice, and I'll tell you why. It's because of the elements. Now, secondly, there has to be a specific act that's actually done. We have that, so we're going to mark that off. The punches, we saw that. But there has to be specific intent, and this is a legal term, specific intent to kill or end somebody's life. So that means when Raja got in that ring, he had to specifically intend to kill Psycho Stu. I think that's really difficult to prove, even by his statement, saying he was going to go in and hit him for real. He's talking about punching him and saying I'm not going to F him up too bad, but I'm going to F him up. How many subs to knock him out? Nowhere does he say anything about killing. And yes, you could still argue his actions say differently. However, I think it's difficult to prove that his mental state was going into that ring, I'm going to kill this guy before I get out. I just don't see that. I think it was more likely reckless conduct that could have caused, death, but I don't think that was his goal. I think his goal was more making a statement, maybe even knocking the guy out, but I do not think that it was homicide. And I think that's an incredibly difficult point to prove. And I think, if Raja has a halfway decent defense attorney, he could avoid that. But I think the other charges fit more accurately.
Yeah, I mean that goes to my other question in the super chat. A wrestling historian wanted to know, what if you were Raja's defense attorney? Is that like what would your strategy be? How would you even handle something like that? I guess I know it depends on the charges, but
it definitely depends on the charges. But I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but they don't just hand these Harvard Law degrees out. I see ways that he could avoid being prosecuted based on, going between what was a work and a shoot and what he thought in his mind. Because I would, now again, this is hypothetical, if I was Raja's attorney, but I would argue that they told him to do this. They gave him permission. Raja is not a professional wrestler. We know that. And I would go to the video. He didn't know what a work was. He didn't know what a shoot was. He didn't know to sell. So the promotion and Psycho Stu are aware this guy does not know what is going on. Yet you're telling him, hey, you can get in here and really do this. So I would just play off the fact that the kid was likely confused. And I'm sure that he was. Did he take it too far? Yes. So he probably wouldn't get off scot-free. However, if I was his attorney, I could limit, how severely he was prosecuted and make sure that he was charged with the right, he was charged correctly. However, there still is room there. There still is a lot of room with the right attorney.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all of that legal insight. You did mention, David, I know there is like a rumor, speculation about this potentially being a work. I know that's a wrestling term, right? But Mark, from your perspective, and you both can speak to this, if it ends up part of even just a little bit of it being a work, or even the whole thing, again, that is speculation, everyone. It is rumor. How would that change the discourse of situations like this?
It's not going to change it, because in pro wrestling, we always say all they're going to remember is the finish. And the last thing that happens is the last thing that people are going to remember. And what people are going to remember is a vicious, horrible beating that he put on a wrestler that was defenseless. That's what people are going to remember. And I'm just blown away that all of this happened, first off, because our business is so dependent on how much you know. And in this case, nobody knew anything.
Yeah. And my response to that is, if this whole thing isn't a work, an elaborate work, man, this is the best acting I've ever seen then, because I really believe this, and they've got us, everybody talking. They fooled us all. They got us all. They worked everybody if this is a work. And Mark and I are workers. Mark is a Hall of Famer. So if they got him with this, come on now. Like, I don't think this is a work, but if it was, they all need Academy Awards. I'll tell you that. Hire them all.
Let's don't say we did.
Yeah. Mark's like,
because I'm Emily, David, and everybody watching. Nobody's going to remember this. They're only going to remember the incident. Yeah. The whole point is, like, you have a story in wrestling. You want to remember the story. You want to remember, like, man, how it started and who was involved, and the Rocky montage. He got beat, he trained and hard, and he came back, and he was able to do. There's none of that story involved. It's just complete ignorance on all sides and miseducation on all sides. And it led to somebody being brutally beaten that didn't deserve it. He's one of the boys. Now, I told David the story of when I first came into wrestling. It was a little different. And there were guys that ribbed and tried to mistreat me, and I lashed out. I had some violent tendencies as a kid, which led me to being banished to Canada. when I got to Canada, I had Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and Stu Hart who were saying, hey, man, you just don't know enough about wrestling. I could have took that the wrong way and been indignant and angry and mad, but I didn't. I listened. I'm like, well, teach me. And that's where I got the knowledge to be able to go to OVW, recreate myself, and be able to come back into pro wrestling and become a Hall of Famer. Through education, through teaching, through development programs. He didn't have any of it. And that is very dangerous because, as David said in the beginning, we give you our body. Here, take it. Do what you do. Just don't kill me. And we almost saw it. We almost saw it. It was a horrible, horrible thing.
Thank you, Mark, for that. David, do you have any additional thoughts on those? Because again, Mark, you shared a really personal moment, right? You've had such a career, WWE Hall of Famer, but you've all had personal stories of things that might have gotten out of hand, miscommunicated. Has there been moments for both of you where you've seen something be prevented before something terrible happens, right? Like how do we take those steps when you're a worker, when you are a producer, when you're a promoter? There's tons of independent organizations around the country, around the world, that are trying to prevent moments like this from happening.
I'll tell you, it's one word: professionalism. Everybody I ever worked with was extremely professional, and I strive to be the same way. So like, there's times I got hit too hard in a match, but before I even could think about a receipt, the guy I was working with would apologize to me. Hey, sorry about that. Or here, you can get me one back. And the same thing, if I ever hit somebody too hard, hey, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to. Tried to be extremely professional. And, I hate to say it, but professionalism was seriously lacking all the way around in this situation. One of the things that stuck out to me is, watching that stream, a large portion of it is Raja sitting there just getting hyped up by his chat, the toxic comments in his chat, by the way, which are just winding him up. But he didn't even know when his spot was. And to me, that's wild. This guy is not a worker. He doesn't know what's going on. He knows at some point he gets to get in and get his receipt, that he doesn't even really know what that is. But nobody has told him what his cue is, what his spot is, even when the match is. What if the match just happened? How would he know, when to go in? And there's a part where eventually, I think it's somebody in his chat says, hey, you should probably find out, when you're going in. And he gets up on stream and has to go look around. It takes a little bit, and he finds some people and he asks, hey, is somebody going to tell me like when I'm going in? And they're, oh, yeah. I'll come out and sit behind you before and tell you. And then later you see a guy comes out and sits behind Raja and starts talking into his ear. We don't know what is being said, but presumably that's calling the spot. And if it's not, that's what should have happened right there. That man should have been telling Raja, this is what you're going to do. When this part happens, you slide in the ring, and when he turns around, you pick him up and do one thing and get out, stand over him, whatever you're going to do, and get out. But we didn't hear this, but I'm pretty certain that person did not tell Raja, go in there and just, wreak havoc on him. Just rain down as many punches as you could, try to kill him. Like, we're certain that didn't happen. So the professionalism there, where you got to remember, this guy's not a worker. He doesn't know what any of these things are. You can't just leave him out there, and then he has to come ask you. Really? He has to come ask you when the spot is? I mean, come on, that's awful.
It's egregious.
But somebody should have realized this and said, hey, let me just double check and make sure he knows what he's supposed to do.
Like David, from the beginning, we said that is this whole thing is marred with lack of understanding and lack of education and lack of knowing what our business is. Like, somebody in a developmental system would know, hey, these are the protocols that usually we follow. But when you don't have any, and you have no idea, I can't imagine being involved in something where I know something is going to happen, but I don't know when.
Yeah.
I know something is going to happen, but I don't know how and what am I taking? I think one of the first things that I would ask is, so what are you going to do when you grab me? How do I need to pose for you? Do I need to help you, or this you think you can get me, or what? We would go through it over and over. I would make especially somebody that didn't know. I'm going to go over it over and over and over, and I've actually done that before. I've had to work with people that had very little to no experience, and when you do, you overcompensate by asking questions. Okay, so when this point happens, you need to start getting close to jumping the barricade. When you do, put your hands on me so I can turn to you. And then don't warp factors number 6, Mr. Zulu me to the damn mat. He threw him to the mat like a MMA fight. And I can make it look like I'm throwing you to the mat at warp factor 6, but it's because I knew how to work. He didn't know. Why would you put somebody in there that didn't know? I'm still just like, what in the Sam Hill of beans is going on? Why were we doing this? I'm just, it shouldn't have never happened.
Yeah,
and I'm one of those people that you were talking about where I was extremely green when I made it to the main roster. So just for myself, I wanted to make sure I knew exactly what I was going to do, especially if there was a spot like this. I would go over it. I would ask a ton of questions because, number one, I want to protect the person, but also I don't want to mess up. And going into that, so that would even come down to what I was going to do. Like if I was supposed to strike somebody, what strikes do I throw well? How good are my punches? Should I throw a drop kick? I don't know what's going to look good. What can I do safely? You know what I mean? And what's going to look good on camera? What's the other person comfortable with? Like all of this stuff should have been asked. And in fact, Mark, you probably don't even remember this, but I remember one time we worked together and this was early on. And I remember you called a press slam on me, like a military press slam. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember. I've never taken this before. Nobody's ever press slammed me. I mean, I'm a heavy dude, about 250. And I remember asking you about it, and you were just kept up, David, don't worry about it. And you were kind of like, he's like, I got you. Don't worry about it. You'll go up. And I was like, okay. I always tell people this story if they want to know how strong you are, because I remember I didn't need to post. You got me up, just shot me right up. I was like, dang. So that's what I bet was like. I was nervous about it, but you had me, and we still talked about it.
And you came down just as safely and as confidently as you went up.
Absolutely.
Because of the education and the know-how.
Yeah. Well, and that's moments of communicating, and you guys were transparent about what you both needed to do in that moment. I know I just wanted to do a time check for everyone that we do have about 10 minutes left. So, I wanted to pivot a little bit. Both of you mentioned kind of the accountability, right? It was, the event was put on by a school in Los Angeles. And one of the things is like, how responsible is this school for the actions that happened that night? And one of the super chats that we have alludes to this. This is CT Fletcher. Doesn't a promotion need to have waivers signed before anyone outside of the promotion gets into the ring?
CT Fletcher, one of the coolest and most recognizable people in the world of physical culture. Thank you so much for the super chat, CT. You should not have to have a disclaimer, because when you come in as a pro wrestler, you're an independent contractor, and you have trunks will travel. Like you get to the point, everybody has insurances for the big companies and even for some of the smaller companies. So you're able to understand that if something happens, this is what the protocols that are going to take place. I with the as big of a shit show as this was, I don't even know if that's the case. But what I do know is that I don't do disclaimers at All Caribbean. Once you sign to do a match or come in to perform for us, everything is taken care of. We have our medical team kind of give you a once over, uh, and then you're allowed to come in and work for us. But there's no, we don't have, you don't need a release form. It's not Pee Wee soccer.
Right. And like what Mark is speaking to, that's covered in your contract of employment. Independent contractors, you
Right.
actually sign a contract and you're going to get paid and everything. All of that is taken care of in it. And there's certain things like you're acknowledging you could be hurt, you could be injured in this. However, within the scope of professional wrestling. So if something goes completely outside of the scope of the contract, then yes, that could be actionable. And I didn't see it anywhere on stream, but I never saw Raja sign any kind of a contract, a waiver, nothing. So that really muddies the waters here because this is a civilian. This is, an outsider who all of a sudden is part of the show and severely injures a contracted wrestler. That is a problem for the promotion. That is a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, how can independent promotions and schools even, because this was, again, a mixture of both, how can they move forward? How do they find, from like a legal perspective, David, how can they get, as students, usually you sign contracts, like when you're going into training that, you potentially could get hurt. But the issue here is when someone from the outside comes in and they aren't contracted talent, but they are working with contracted talent, that is where kind of the lines get a little blurry. So what are those steps that you not only are protecting your students, you're protecting your talent, but also promotions?
Well, first of all, everybody should be contracted, whether you're a worker or not, whether you're there for one day, one segment, you need to sign a contract. That just has to be. You can't just let somebody in off the street because this could happen. And
right,
that's the thing. This is such a unique circumstance because most promotions, I think, handle this and they don't just let outsiders come in and kind of do anything they want. And even aside from the legal aspect of it, just the professionalism, because this still could have been avoided without a contract. Make sure the individual knows what they're doing. And that's the thing. If nobody signed any kind of a contract or anything, which you have to have them sign a contract, but still, you absolutely make sure you go over it with them 100 times. You're going to get in and do this. Do nothing else. Do you have any questions? Okay. Answer the questions. So do you understand what you're doing? All right. You get in and you do this. You go over it ad nauseum. And that was not done here. There's so many things that could have been done to prevent this. And they just weren't. It's an absolute disaster.
Emily, every bit of publicity is not good publicity. This is a case where if you thought that because this person was live streaming, it was going to bring more eyes to your product, it's like when that Dave Chappelle show spot when Keeping It Real goes wrong, because it went wrong and it went wrong fast. I pray that Stu is all right, that he's healing, that everything is on the upswing. If I had my way, I would try to get everybody in the wrestling industry to never allow this kind of thing to happen again. And people that have contentment for pro wrestling, that don't love it, like, be stricter and harder with them being in our business. I don't think that, he would never work for me. But I'm just saying the way you keep people out is by not allowing them to have a platform. Pro wrestling should not be a thing for Roger Jackson. He's got MMA and whatever else he wants to do. but like there's always redemption stories, and maybe he'll have one, but not on my watch, not right now.
Yeah, we did put a poll out there, and the question was, should Raja Jackson even be allowed in a pro wrestling locker room? And at the moment, it was around 83% no and 17% yes.
Yeah, I
So
don't see
that's
any
where,
reason for that.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
tells
there's
you
no
everything
reason.
you need to know.
Yeah, he shouldn't be in a pro wrestling locker room at all, especially after this. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's trying to. I mean, clearly he has a lot of contempt for pro wrestlers. Clearly does.
Yeah, it's a horrible deal. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That means don't be involved at all. And that's up for the people that run the companies. Like, he's not going to be a great heel for you. He's not, because he don't care and he don't like the business. So why would you try to pay somebody money that don't love what we do? I'm getting ready to watch SmackDown because I have to cover SmackDown for my show tonight on Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7 after dark. I probably will not mention what's going on, so I want to make sure that all of the super chat people get their questions asked. So let's go through the questions. Anybody that has, this is your last chance.
Yeah, last chance, everyone, before Mark heads to SmackDown to cover it. This is the last chance to put your super chat in. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for having this conversation. It was really great to hear your insights. I hope that chat enjoyed it as well. Do you have any last thoughts before, as the super chats come in? Do you both have any last comments before we end our discussion?
Pro wrestling is alive and well. The business has never been better. The people that are in it love it and want to be better at it. From an entertainment standpoint, the world is starting to know that we are more entertainment, and with shows like Unreal. Hopefully there'll be Emmys in the future. There'll be Oscars in the future. Let's be very selective in who we bring in our industry.
Yeah.
And David,
adding
your
to what Mark said, I think that's part of what makes this even worse, is the fact that where wrestling is now in shows like Unreal, it's never been more apparent than at any time before that what we do is predetermined and that the wrestlers are working together. So that really gives no excuse for somebody to get in there and really start fighting somebody, or saying they didn't understand what was going on. They didn't know pro wrestling wasn't real. No. And so that makes it even worse for people who maybe have very little, experience with watching pro wrestling. When you watch this, when you see this clip of Raja just punching an unconscious man, that's not pro wrestling. And I'm sure it turned everybody's stomach like it did mine, but it was exceptionally hard to watch, just knowing that that pro wrestler was giving his body to this person who just completely took advantage. And that's honestly just despicable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both so much. Mark, you do have one last super chat, which is unrelated to the discussion today, so I wanted to save it for last. This is from Ryan, and he wants to know, what are your thoughts on the 2K25 video game, your character, and then what was your very first car? And David, what was your first car too?
So I had my very first car for 2 weeks. I bought a Lexus, drove from Denver to Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center where I live. Saw a deer, swerved, hit black ice, wrecked it, totaled it. So that was my first car. But I've had several since then. I was okay, as you can see.
I do, Mark, see your face on the side of the van all the time in Austin. I'm like, there's Mark. He's going.
Yeah, I enjoy that. That was a good relationship. But as far as the game, I'm very happy with the likeness, the way that everything moves is great. I signed a deal with WWE, a nostalgia deal, to allow my likeness to be used in the framework of this contract that we have. But just to be able to go back to where I came from means a lot to me. And for all those people that love the games like I love the game, I can't wait to play it. I'm sure that David has spent many days playing the games with his son, as I have with my daughter and my son. I look forward to it. I think that 2K people are awesome. My guy Ronnie 2K at basketball, man, what a good company it must be to work for, because like it just gives people so much joy. So I appreciate the person asking the question.
All right, David, what was your first car?
My first car was a Dodge Avenger. It was a used Dodge Avenger, and I hooked it up. My friend Rob and I, we put a cold air intake on it. We put a racing stripe on it. This thing looked like it could really move. It couldn't, but it looked like it could. And then I spent all of the money I earned over the summer to put a system in it with these giant subwoofers and amps, so you could hear me. That was the thing. My car could move like it looked, but boy, you could hear me coming down the block. And I want to say this, because shout out to Ronnie 2K. I play a lot of NBA 2K with my son, but also, hey, I think you guys need to bring David Otunga back to WWE 2K just for the simple fact you can hear my entrance music, which was a banger. I can't tell you how many people message me and just tell me that that's their comment. Man, I love playing with you in WWE 2K just for your entrance music. And just apparently, I was code on reversals. I'm just finding out about this now. It was too late.
Let's make it happen. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for an incredible discussion. It was very insightful. I learned many things as well. So I really appreciate your time. Everyone, thank you so much for joining our podcast, Heat Wrestling. Again, incredible conversation. Mark and David, again, always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Emily. David, thank you so much for coming on with me. And just being a friend and somebody that I can always bounce stuff off of, because, like, guys, don't just do stuff because you can. Always get good legal counsel.
There you go. And thank you so much for having me on here, Mark. You're like a big brother to me. Always look out for me. And I really appreciate it. When you call me, I'll drop whatever I got to do. I'm there. And Emily, it's fantastic meeting you. Thank you so much for doing this. I enjoyed it. And to the super chat, thank you guys for all these amazing questions. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. One last thing, Mark, they want you to know when you're going on the CT Fletcher's podcast.
You know what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But I just tell CT I'm old now. I'm not going to come on there and have him work me out like he did Bobby Lashley. I'm not doing it. I'm done. If somebody hit me, I'm calling the police.
I hear you.
I'm done.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you both so much again for that great conversation. And again, follow Mark, follow David, and we will hopefully be reunited for some other wonderful conversation. So thank you both so much.
Absolutely. I got one more thing. Speaking of CT Fletcher, make sure you check out my podcast on CT Fletcher's. I'm on CT Fletcher's podcast today. And we're talking about me. We talked about this case, but it's pretty cool because, I'm sitting down with Mark, and this podcast with me is out as well. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to Fourth Rope Wrestling, Westside Gun, Smoke This.
Westside Gun.
I'm one of the voices doing commentary. I'm so honored to have a commentary position with this company. So check us out.
Sounds good. Mark, do you have any other shout outs you want to give real quick?
Hey, let's go watch a good SmackDown and tune in, guys, to After Dark on Pro Wrestling 24/7. I'll see y'all later on.